Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. On this episode, we are going to debunk a Bulls rumor and talk about our Cubs and White Sox. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Season tickets are on sale. Also, the Ice Hog store is open. So head on over to icehogs.com, pick up a hat, shirt, jersey, season tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, it is 4 million degrees, but I think we're going to keep it cool in here, right?
Yeah, I mean, I need to after the long weekend I worked, and hopefully the weather will get better in terms of temperature. It sounds like it will after we get some nice storms first. But yeah, boy.
Yeah, I heard it was supposed to get down to the 60s like by Wednesday.
Yeah, go figure. As soon as I'm done working games for the week, and it gets nice and cool. That's nice.
Well, not a ton going on this week. We've got the Bulls draft coming up in just a few days. And I don't know if you are going to be able to make it, but we were invited, for those who don't know, our friends at invited us to a draft party, which should be fun because I think hilarity will ensue.
I really hope I can. The schedule is still kind of up for grabs right now for this week, but yeah, I really hope I can because I can imagine that watching the NBA draft with those guys would just be so much fun.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of arguing / joke making.
And I'm just going to be the one that just takes it all in, just watches the arguing go back and forth because I don't really have much of a scouting report on a lot of the prospects here, but you know, I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun when the Bulls draft, whether they trade up or whether they do, draft at their spot, you know that everyone's not going to agree with it.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of, well, I don't know, it's the Bulls. I was going to say there's going to be a lot of combination of a lot of cheers and a lot of boos. But this is the Bulls. There could just be boos because you never know what they're going to do.
And then post-game fireworks as Big Dave gets food poisoning again for all of us to see. Sorry, Big Dave.
So while we're talking Bulls, I didn't have anything for the Bulls other than, just mentioning the draft. But I've heard several rumblings, read a few rumor mill reports, and have a bunch of people ask me about it. Kawhi Leonard. I'm sure you've seen by now that he's vocally said he does not want to return to the San Antonio Spurs.
Yep.
And while it may be true that he does not want to go back to the Spurs, it does not mean that he does want to come to the Bulls or that the Bulls will go out and get him. I know there's going to be people out there that have hopes and dreams of Kawhi Leonard playing for the Bulls and helping them, represent the East in the NBA Finals. But guess what? That is not happening. None chance.
Yeah.
I know here's the thing. One, nobody is trading. I think he's got 1 year left on his deal. Nobody is trading for him unless they get the assurance that he's going to sign a long-term contract. That's 101 because that would be a stupid thing because you're going to have to give up an absolute ton to get him. And why in the world would he come to the Bulls when he could go somewhere else that where he could either already join a superstar team or go somewhere where they can make moves to bring in another superstar. Cough, Lakers, cough.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, right now, the Bulls may have all the cap space in the world, but I mean, this is a rebuilding team. They're not going to be attracting free agents. I mean, they can't attract free agents either way, but especially not now.
Yeah, I mean, and plus, if you are looking at the actual trade to bring Kawhi Leonard over, the starting point is going to be Lauri Markkanen.
Right, and he's one of the key future pieces of your franchise. I mean, this kind of reminds me of a little bit like the whole thing with the White Sox trading for Manny Machado. Why would you want to give up a ton of assets when you're rebuilding? You know, the Bulls aren't going to do that. And think about it. You're not going to get Kawhi Leonard by saying, oh, we'll just trade like our veterans. Okay, your veterans are Robin Lopez and Justin Holiday, essentially. Do you really think that that's going to get you Kawhi Leonard? I don't think so.
You could sweeten the pot with Cristiano Felicio.
Oh, boy. Well, okay. If we throw in Cameron Payne, there's no way they could refuse.
Yeah, make them an offer they can't refuse. I mean, the thing is, if you give up probably your number 7 pick and Lauri Markkanen to get Kawhi Leonard, then you don't have much of a team around him, and you don't have the blocks to, or the weapons to get more assets. So what's the point? I mean, it's one thing if he was a free agent and you went after him hard. I'm 100% behind that, because Kawhi's a top 5 when he's healthy, a top 5 player in this league. Suddenly you, with the team you have in place, you add a Kawhi Leonard, suddenly you are a contender.
Right.
But money is an asset that you have plenty of, and cap space is something you have plenty of, but talent and draft assets are something that are at a premium for your team.
No, I mean, if this was 2-3 years down the road, this would be a whole nother story. But we've said before that we think that there are signs that could point that the Bulls are further along the rebuild than we think. But whether you think they're further along or not, let's face it, they're still a ways away from being legit contenders.
I mean, the East is terrible, so you could East contend pretty quickly.
But I'm saying legit contenders.
Yeah, like legit.
Get a 4-3 seed in the East. Legit championship contending.
Yeah, they are a few years and or some extreme luck away from that point.
Right, exactly. It's obviously there's luck involved in pretty much all sports championships, but even so, to make that luck, you gotta get good enough assets, and the Bulls don't have enough right now. They have some, yes, but I mean, think about it. Besides Robin Lopez, I mean, how many truly valuable veterans are on this team? Not a lot. It's a young team.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a blessing and a curse. Is you already know, like, you know who your future is, because that's who you have on your team. You don't have anything else to move to bring in future core pieces except these draft picks. You got 7 and you went 22.
Yeah.
That is your future. Whoever those 2 draft picks are, plus the guys you have. Lopez and Holiday are not going to bring you back a ton of return. So I don't see the value in trading for them.
Well, right. I mean,
Mirotic, for some miracle got you a first round draft pick. I don't see Holiday or Lopez doing that.
Yeah. We talked about luck, and I guess you could kind of consider that luck on its own, what they got for Nico. But yeah, I mean, to your point, the only things the Bulls are going to be trading for right now are going to be draft picks. I mean, mainly, I think the only thing that they would trade for, if you had to look at one thing that I really only see, is trading up. There have been rumors about trading up. And I think those are a bit more legitimate than, other rumors. So you're not going to be trading for any players by any means right now. I mean, yeah, it's the Bulls, but even so, I don't think they're that dumb to try to, pull off trades like they've done in the past right now. They know what they're doing. Well, okay, they know they're in a rebuild state. Whether they know what they're doing will truly be yet to be seen, but they know the situation they're at. It's not like when they traded Doug McDermott and Taj Gibson. This team was in a very different state at that point. At this point, they know where they're at. They know they're a rebuilding team, and they should know that realistically, you're not going to trade assets for an asset. It's going to be for a draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they can couple one of the two veterans with their 7 pick to move up. That would be nice.
Right.
And I mean, I really, really hope that the rumors about them wanting to part ways with Dunn are not true, because like I said, they could go point guard first, but I just feel like that's not a step forward. That's a step sideways. I mean, your best option is making Dunn work or having Dunn work out. So then you draft somebody to fill a actual hole.
I haven't heard much about that, but from what I'm seeing, it doesn't sound like those rumors were that true. So I'm not worried about that yet. The stuff with Dunn, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. We had a listener say that they heard rumors that was the reason Tibbs wanted to get rid of him from the Timberwolves, is because Dunn doesn't work hard. But I heard the opposite, that he was an absolute workout warrior. So I don't know. I'm not in this one's hard to talk about because I'm just hearing things from other people with no substantiation. It's really hard to talk about that. I hope it's not true. We saw flashes of good things from Dunn. And it would be fantastic if we could somehow move up and fill, a wing player or a big man, to help, make this team better.
Man, I really wish that the Bulls had a top 5 pick at least. Here's the thing. I can't be too mad at the Bulls for the lack of tank, because in my opinion, I actually thought the Bulls did all they could front office wise. I thought they did all they could to try to tank. I really did, but you're not going to convince a young core who's trying to develop to just not play basketball. I'm frustrated with some of the wins, believe me, but I can't be mad at them for really winning, even though I'm mad at the situation.
Yeah, and another thing is, like, you can be mad at Nico for helping win those how many games in a row, but then again, if he doesn't come out and help you win all those games in a row, then you don't get a first round pick for him.
Right, that got us a first round pick. I mean, more than anything.
So,
and the other thing is, the Bulls may have been bad, but some of those other teams that are ahead of them, really bad. Really, really bad. Look at the Mavericks. Outside Dirk Nowitzki, absolutely nothing.
I mean, I think Orlando had a promotion that they were letting fans play point guard per game.
Hey, they might as well have.
Because their tank game was strong.
Yeah. Very.
But I'm excited to see what the Bulls do, because it's really going to tell us the direction of, what they're doing with this franchise. Because honestly, we have no idea, honestly, what the Bulls are doing right now. They still have Levine that they have to sign as he's a restricted free agent. We don't know what they're doing with Dunn. This number 7 pick, or if they move up or down, whatever they do, it's going to tell us a lot about what the direction of this team is.
Well, yeah,
and that's going to be the exciting, fun part.
The way I kind of was thinking the other day when I was thinking about the Bulls draft, I was almost thinking about this is in terms of if they would have, if they decide to trade up or not. Let's just say, for the sake they're trading up. What that would tell me is kind of similar to what the Bears did with Trubisky. That would tell me that there is someone they want, like their guy. Trubisky was Ryan Pace's guy. Do the Bulls have a guy? And if they do, would they try to attempt to trade up? I mean, Pace did it to get his guy. Would the Bulls do it? I don't know. Maybe they have a range of guys, or is there one singular guy? That's what I'm really interested to see. If there is indeed a trade up, I think that would tell you that there is someone they absolutely want. One single guy that they would just absolutely think is essential to have to build this team.
Mo Bamba.
He's the guy I like. I like him, but honestly, if the Bulls stick at 7, I think he's probably gone by then.
You know what is he's got a lot of upside, but if you I think it was C Red Fred is the one that can't stand him and thinks he's an awful draft pick, but I don't know. He's got a lot of upside, but he could end up being a Greg Oden too. Greg Oden, who is best known for looking when he was 18 years old, looking like he was 57. And being the only guy that was drafted ahead of Kevin Durant. That was a boneheaded move, because I remember sitting in my house going, "Oh my God, you just drafted that guy over Kevin Durant." Whew. And if I can say that, then
right,
why is an NBA team doing that? So let's transition over to White Sox for a little bit before we go deep into the Cubs. So White Sox had some ups and downs here. They had a great series against Boston Red Sox. Nice series against Cleveland, who's a really good team, and then they get swept by the Detroit Tigers, which is not good. So it's funny because this is a team where you definitely see the talent, start to shine through at times, but then again, you get a real slap to reality when on occasions, and you realize how bad they can be.
Yeah, I mean, you saw against the Tigers, I didn't really see the games themselves, but from what I saw, what I heard, that the Sox really didn't take advantage of a lot of scoring opportunities.
Yeah, you've got youth and inexperience, and you've got a lot of talent coupled with that, but the youth and inexperience, they really show through sometimes. And I think that's why the White Sox are really going to have to open up the purse, the pocketbook, probably in this offseason, to bring in quality veterans to help, speed up this rebuild. I mean, Jose Abreu, great player, a total professional, but you need more. You need more veteran leadership to come in and help.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just kind of ride the whole veteran experience on one or two guys. Because when you think about veterans currently on the White Sox that are kind of there to be the veterans, it's Abreu, who's, their best player. And even though it sounds weird, I mean, James Shields, he's the veteran of the pitching staff.
I mean, yeah, that's what he is. But you need more. You need a frontline pitcher. You need like a John Lester guy. You need a Max Scherzer. You need, who's the guy that Detroit traded to the
Justin
Astros?
Yeah.
Verlander. God, oh man, moment. Yeah, Verlander. You need somebody like that. Somebody that can just take over a game. James Shields, he's your innings eater, and he's a veteran. He can give you a perspective from years of experience, but he's not a frontline guy. His talent is already surpassed by, other people on the team. So it's, they're going to have to open up the pocketbooks. But the one thing to, think about is if it's definitely, you have to do it, but it's when. You had earlier in the week, you had a situation where both Tim Anderson and Yohan Moncada got benched, for their, for lack of hustle. And it's, is that a situation where you think you can correct that before next season and make this the off season where you go and build this team? Or is it going to be another year of, making sure you get your ducks in a row before you open up and spend the big money?
Yeah, exactly. I think if the White Sox are looking for somebody like a veteran to sign, you would imagine that it's going to be a guy that not only can help them develop, but be part of the team in the future. You know what I mean? Like, not just be like, oh, here's one veteran guy. I mean, they will sign guys like that, but I also think that they're going to be looking at guys that could help them in the long run, and even when they're contending, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain guy that plays in Baltimore that would probably be legit. I mean, he's a veteran, a very, very young veteran, but he's got several years in this league and doing it at a high level, and will absolutely help a team.
Right. Exactly. I think one thing that the White Sox need to be on the lookout for is there somebody that they could sign, like I said, help now and tomorrow, but also kind of be another team leader? Because I think that's really important. They kind of have one in like Jose Abreu, but I feel like a leadership quality guy is something that could be very useful. I don't know how to say that without sounding cliche, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
I read an article that was talking about trade chips that every team has. And on the White Sox, it listed Abreu, who, definitely got to dangle him out there to see what he's worth. Because if somebody's going to offer you just a ridiculous package, you got to listen. But I just don't see them being a huge package for him. And thus, I don't see the worth in trading him. Then they list James Shields, which we've talked about a bunch on the show. I don't know if, contract wise is the, was it the Padres that signed him?
Yes.
Before the White Sox? Yeah, the Padres, they're eating a big majority of his contract, and the White Sox are making another chunk. So if they did trade him, nobody would be on the hook for a ton of money. But I just don't know if I see the worth in it for the White Sox just because he's an innings eater, and I don't know what you're going to get for him. But then they said Joakim Soria, who the White Sox bullpen's been terrible. I don't know what you're going to get for that guy. And
at this point, I don't think you're going to get too much.
Yeah, I mean, they were like, oh, he made 6 consecutive saves. And I was like, okay, it's still not going to return you much. But the biggest head scratcher is they listed Avi Garcia as one of their trade pieces. What in the hell are you going to get for Avi Garcia?
Right now, not much. He's been hurt most of the year, and when he has played, hasn't been all that great. If he comes back soon and maybe starts tearing it up, you could maybe get something, but it wouldn't be much.
I mean, the guy had one really good season, and albeit it was a really good season, but he had a bunch of subpar seasons. In fact, every other season was a subpar season. So he went a bunch of subpar seasons, one really good season, and then an injured season. So what in the world would somebody trade for him? Like, there's no way that they could move him for anything.
Right. And I mean, look at what position players are going for these days. Some of these position players at the deadline, they're not going for very much. I mean, look at JD Martinez, for crying out loud. We talked about this before. We've said that, big trade, like blockbuster trade chips you see that are involved, like prospects for like a pitcher. It's a pitcher. Not as much position players. At least it hasn't been that way the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Position players, they don't go for nearly as much, especially when they're not, defensive studs too. I don't know what you would get for him, and I don't even know if you could get anything for him. I think Avi Garcia, I think all these guys are going to be there after the trade deadline. I would be shocked if the White Sox made any sort of, move of substance on this team.
I think if there was one, it would probably be Joakim Soria, and not really for a ton, but like if there was a contending team that just needed another veteran reliever, I could see that trade being done. But yeah, Abreu, he's not going anywhere. I don't think Avi Garcia is really worth trading at this point right now. And I don't think James Shields is, unless there's a crazy amount of injuries and someone's looking for a cheap fifth starter. Other than that, I think those are the only two scenarios I could see there really being a trade. And then maybe there'll be really tiny, small moves. But yeah, right now, the White Sox, where they are in the rebuild, they've traded their veteran assets that they've wanted to trade. They've traded Sale, Quintana, Todd Frazier, David Robertson. They traded all those guys. So now they're just mainly working on developing the young guys with not a lot of veterans on the team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Miguel Gonzalez comes back soon from injury. How does that impact this rotation?
Not much. I
don't know what to, because there's definitely some weak links in this rotation right now.
Nothing though.
But I don't know if Miguel Gonzalez is a stronger link than the weak links that you have.
Well, here's the big question. And we're going to bring this old question up again. And I think I've formulated an opinion on this question. And you probably know where I'm going with this. Lucas Giolito. I think you got to send him down at this point.
So, we had a listener that commented that about the number of options Giolito has left. And that could factor into it. I could not find a good resource for how many options players have left. I started going back through his transactions, and I didn't realize that the Nationals had brought him up before.
That's true.
So he may be out of options. That would be an issue. Or if he only had, even if he had one option left, do you utilize that right now?
I'm gonna try to find it. Oh, sorry about the phone in the background. You get a nice little bonus ring there. Okay, because let's see.
Because he's struggling. He had another start where it went 5 1/3 with 5 runs given up. If you look at the chart of the batting average, in spots, when he pitches it in the heart of the plate, guys are batting almost 500 against him.
Well, it's one of the things where you see the command struggle so rampant, and then he has to throw a strike, and he's got to throw it right down the middle, and it gets crushed. That's the bugaboo of a bad command. I'm looking at his numbers. Going back to his rookie time in Washington, it was only 21.1 innings pitched, so it's not like he exceeded rookie limits there. And he had a 6.75 ERA and an 8.21 FIP. 8.21 and a whip of 1.8. And then last year, his ERA with the White Sox in 45.1 innings, it was 2.38, but the FIP was nearly 5. The whip was just below 1, but the FIP was nearly 5. And then so far this year, it's a 7.19 ERA, 71.1 innings pitched, 45 walks, 6.29 FIP, and a 1.6 WHIP. I hate writing guys off at this time. I really do. But yeesh, what do you do with him right now? I know you got to work with him, but is getting his brains beaten in every time he goes out there? I don't know. I don't know what to think about him right now. He's one of the guys that, though I'm not completely writing him off yet, but there's enough red flags to tell me that this may just not work out because we've seen dips in velocity. That you can't really take that lightly. Maybe he finds a way to adjust, but right now there's just a ton of red flags.
The weird thing about the dip in velocity is his full velocity was there during spring training. So it was just a couple of short months ago that he had full velocity. So
right. And he had a great spring training. And that told you that told us he was going to have a good year.
Yeah, I don't know how you get a dip in velocity like that in just like when you're 23 years old in 3 months. Not even 3 months. Like, how does that dip in velocity come like that? Like, was it 3 miles an hour? That's a big dip.
That's a big dip.
If he was 30 years old and he had that dip, everyone would write him off. But he's 23. So is there an injury issue?
Right. That's what I'd like to know. If there's an injury issue, then they'd have to deal with it and get him healthy before they trot him out again. And who knows, if there is one, they get him healthy, then maybe he gains form again.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any sort of issue at all as far as pain, discomfort, inflammation, not even a full injury, is Gonzalez is coming back. You've got options where you could, put him on the 10-day disabled, let him try to recover. Hell, give him a rehab start. Do these things to see what you're getting out of him after some rest and healing.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where you almost have to try everything. If that means putting him on the DL for a little bit to kind of regain himself, maybe heal up a little bit if he is hurt, or maybe he needs some time to take, then I'd say do it. You're in a season where you're just trying to develop. And you want Lucas Giolito to work out, so, would that be worth doing? I think it would be. Look, I'm not an expert here. I'm not a pitching coach, or I don't have the medical history of him, but something is really not right with him. It's not just that he's struggling. The dip in velocity is there. The command hasn't looked any better. There are some serious issues here. He's only 23, so that's why I said you couldn't write him off fully yet, but there's enough red flags for you to be concerned. Wouldn't you say that's a fair statement?
Oh, it's very fair. And I don't have any insider information or any reports of an injury. It's the only explanation I can have for a 23-year-old in 2.5 months to drop 3 miles an hour in the velocity.
Right.
I mean, it's either injury or fatigue. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. And both of those are rest. So if that's not the issue, then the White Sox need to address what the issue is, because their fan base is watching every time he goes out.
Oh yeah.
They don't care. They don't care what James Shields does. They care what Lucas Giolito is, because he is supposed to be a frontline starter when this team is good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if there's pitchers that everyone is looking at right now in the White Sox, it's Giolito, Lopez, and Kopech. Really.
And Kopech in his last 7 starts has a 7.24 ERA.
Yeah, I heard that his stats really kind of went down. I'm gonna look it up here.
His last start, he went 3 innings. We gave up 5 runs and 8 walks.
Yeah. Looking at the stats now, his whip is it's 1.4. Hits per 9, 6.9. Home runs down 0.6. Base on balls per 9, 6.1. So, I mean, right there, to me, it sounds like a command issue.
Yeah, I mean that's just gotta. I mean, if I'm a White Sox fan, I'm starting to get nervous. I mean, if Dylan Covey doesn't look so good, I'm real nervous because Dylan Cease is a while away. Kopech doesn't look good at all. Giolito looks terrible.
Lopez looks good.
Rodon.
At least Lopez looks
good. Rodon looks okay. I mean, his last start, he went 5 innings, 2 earned runs, but 3 walks in those 5 innings. He looked okay.
Give him some time. He just got back from injury. Give him some time.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely he says that he needs to get better, and everybody's saying he needs to get better. He knows he has to get better, but if you're the White Sox fans, like that's got to be a little nervous for you. Dylan Covey is that bright spot. If it's not for him, don't you start worrying because Fulmer doesn't look good. James Shields is old, and he's been hit or miss. Like he had a really good start against Cleveland, but then this last start didn't look so good.
Yeah, I think the brightest spot on the White Sox right now has been Reynaldo Lopez, because no matter how good or bad he is, he grinds his way through and gives you a good start. So you got to give a lot of props to him. And at the start of the year, things were looking really dominant for Kopech. I mean, he's still striking out 11.8 batters per 9 in the minors, but you're seeing the command issues, and you just wonder, okay, so how long is it going to take him to get that back, When's he going to regain that and be able to come up? Because you remember, people were looking at June for him coming up. But right now, it looks like that could be set back if there's really some serious command issues here.
Yeah, I mean, you went from a team where if all went according to plan, you have a Mets from a couple years ago, Mets type rotation where it's all young guys that are making, no money as your rotation, and then you can spend all the money on bats. That's a good thing to have, is because you've got some young bats and you can add, and there's some big name good bats that are going to be a free agent after the end of the season. I mean, if you're the White Sox, you could afford to go get Bryce Harper and Manny Machado if that rotation of Kopech, Giolito, Lopez, Covey, Rodon and Fulmer do what you want them to do. You have a great rotation, and you can use all that money to pay these guys. And if you have a lineup with Abreu, Machado, Harper, Moncada, then suddenly you are going to make some noise. But the pitching isn't coming around like you wanted to, and it's actually, there's some big question marks there. I just wonder how these question marks will shape the off-season plan.
Yeah, exactly. There's a whole other half plus of the season to go, so you could see some improvements as we go along. I'm not trying to be pessimistic here when it comes to the White Sox, but there's got to be some frustration with some of the shortcomings so far, but you can't write anything off yet. You really can't. And we've said it before, not every one of these prospects is going to pan out like you think. What's good for the White Sox is that they have so many prospects, you can afford a number of them not working out and still having some work out, and things will work in the end. That's why you get so many of them.
Yep, you play the numbers game.
Exactly.
All right, you ready to talk some Cubs?
Yeah, I got some good and some frustrating things to say about them.
Before we start, I want to say this. I think we both agreed that after the Cardinals and Brewers series, there was a record that they could get in those 2 series combined that we would look at it as a positive. That record was 3-3.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they got, 3-3.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to poo-poo this 2 series, but there's some definite issues than the way they got those three wins.
If you want to bring up the big issue I have, really, It was that 1-0 loss to the Brewers. That one was bad. That is the main problem I had over that stretch. It was that last loss.
That one was a rough one. I mean, that whole series, in regulation, 9-inning game, not counting extra, the Cubs scored 2 runs in 27 regular game innings.
Yeah.
That's not good. I mean, that basically says that they're struggling versus the Milwaukee starters and their regular bullpen, their regular rotational bullpen. They're struggling against them. It's not until they get to the bottom barrel of the bullpen that they're scoring runs. And
I will say this. They did score off Hader, and that was pretty impressive.
But otherwise it's been rough. You're not winning against Milwaukee without an absolute spectacular pitching performance.
Yeah, so the one loss, the middle game, the Tyler Chatwood start, that was like, okay, whatever. But boy, I mean, the 1-0 loss really bothered me. Here's the thing. The last 5 games, or 5 or 6 games, the Cubs have been shut out 3 times. And I know that this offense is good, but it is not consistent. This team can just go so ice cold. And I have been, I'm trying to be the optimist here. And you look at the Cubs record, it's one of the best in baseball. It's 40-28. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining here, but just as an observation is that this offense can just go so ice cold at times. I know it's a long season. You're going to go through slumps. I get that. But it seems like the slumps happen a little longer than you'd like. And all I'm really asking for is a little bit more consistency from the offense. That's all I really want.
Do you know what Chris Bryant's batting average was in that Brewer series?
Do I want to know?
0.
Yeah,
0 for 9.
He's the one I really wanted to talk about. I'm not going to go crazy like, oh, Brian sucks, blah, blah, blah. It seems like it's just a slump, but boy, this might be the worst stretch he's had in the big leagues in his career.
And it's not terrible. It's just streaky. It's very streaky. And, what sucks is when he's streaking positively, it's not huge power numbers, which can change outcomes of games. When you have a superstar that's in a hot streak, usually you can ride that to a bunch of wins in a row. Look at Daniel Murphy when he goes on those just ridiculous streaks. His team, he helps create wins, consecutive wins. Chris Bryant hasn't put up those power numbers when he's hit. So, I mean, I'm not concerned per se about the power numbers and the home runs being down, but when he's hitting, it's not helping produce wins. And when he's cold, i.e. when there's runners in scoring position, he's real cold.
Right now, when I watch him, I feel like this is the first time we're really starting to see things get in his head. Like, you can clearly see there's frustration in his head. You clearly see it.
Yeah, I mean,
at least that's my observation.
I mean, he's still a young guy. When you're a young guy that's never really struggled, and you finally get your first taste of struggle, and it's baseball. There's never been a player that didn't struggle at some point. He's got to figure out a way to work through it,
and I think he will. I'm not worried about him. I'm just saying it's very odd. It's very unlike him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he won't get out of it. It's worrisome.
Well, I just want him to get out of it as soon as possible because we need his production.
Oh yeah, we definitely do. But
before we move on, can I just say one thing about the NL Central right now?
Sure.
I don't know how to put this. Like, okay, so I give the Brewers a lot of credit for playing how they're playing. Kane and Yelich were amazing additions to that team. I just don't understand how they're this good. With that pitching rotation, how are they getting these great performances from some of those guys?
I think reality is going to hit them. I'm not saying that they're not a good team, but reality is going to hit them. Is you can't have a bullpen or a rotation like that all have like career type numbers in the same season. The statistical probability of that is low.
It's just crazy because this is like the second year in a row they're doing this kind of thing.
They're gonna come back to reality. They did last year. It's not like the Cubs ran away with it. It's the Cubs went on a nice streak and the Brewers came back to reality and the Cubs won the division. And I feel like that similar thing is going to happen. The Brewers are a really nice team and they're going to be a problem for the Cubs for a good while. So, they gotta get used to it, but I still don't think this is the Brewers' year. I think the Cubs, similar to what happened last year, is the Cubs go on a nice streak, and then ride it home.
This is what scares me. They're doing this now. At the trade deadline, they have plenty of assets to get better. They're gonna as soon as some of these pitchers start going down, they're just gonna go out and trade for guys. That's what scares me.
Do they though? Because they could have pulled the trigger and signed a free agent pitcher, and they didn't.
Well, I mean, if they're in a playoff race, if they're in first place in July, you'd think they'd have to, right?
You'd think that they would be aggressive, but I don't know. I don't know if they will be.
I mean, like, I'm looking at the rotation now. Junior Guerra, guy you've never heard of a few years ago, 33 years old. He's having a great year. I mean, I'm trying to give the guy credit. Jhoulys Chacin is pitching great right now. I'm trying to give these guys credit. It's just, it's kind of head scratching at times. It's like, I didn't think that they'd be able to pull this off really this well. I mean, look at their lineup. Kane and Yelich, like I said, great ball players. Travis Shaw is a solid power bat. Domingo Santana is a solid young guy. Jesus Aguilar is 13 home runs. This was a journeyman.
What happens when Ryan Braun inevitably gets hurt again?
I mean, I don't feel like Braun's been really doing all that much. I mean, if you look at the registered roster on Baseball Reference, he's not even like in the regular lineup. Left field is Christian Yelich, right field is Domingo Santana, and center field's Lorenzo Cain. Ryan Braun is currently slashing 242, 298, at least going into tonight, 8 home runs. He's not even contributing that much.
I mean, those are like Rizzo numbers.
Well, the OBP is much lower than Rizzo.
Yeah, I still think that they come back to reality. Not like crash and burn, but they take a dip, and you start seeing them come back. I guess the better way to put it is come back to the mean.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said before, I think it's a solid Brewers team, but what they're doing right now, they're 42 and 29. How are they that good? I think a lot of it also, you do have to credit, I will say this, that bullpen is really good. I mean, Josh Hader is something else. Jeremy Jeffress has an 0.52 ERA. And then you have Jacob Barnes doing decently. You have a really good bullpen. So, we'll see how long that lasts as well. I mean, Jeremy Jeffries, these numbers are ridiculous. No one's talking about him, but he is putting up some great numbers. I mean, looking at his career numbers, he's always been a solid guy, but wow.
Look at the teams that that, when the playoffs start, you look at the ones that you're like, oh, this is a favorite team. And the team that actually goes to the World Series, you look at that lineup and it's always a good lineup, not, man, I don't know how this team got here lineups. That's the thing that I keep, hammering home in my head is, sure, this is a team that does well in the regular season. I just can't see this team performing in a playoff.
Yeah, I think they can in the future. They need some more pieces because, I mean, the lineup, like I said, outside Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain, Manny Pena, 212, 275. Jesus Aguilar has been really good, 13 home runs, 293. Jonathan Villar is average. Orlando Arcia is really struggling, but I think he's got more talent than what he's showing. Domingo Santana, average. He's got a power swing, but this year he's only hit 3 home runs. And Travis Shaw, he'll hit you home runs. He's got a good on-base percentage and a meh batting average, but productive enough. But, you look on paper, I think that both the Cardinals and the Cubs are far better than this lineup, unless they trade for a few guys, but you know what I mean?
I mean, just think about a playoff series. Is somebody trots out a Max Scherzer or a Corey Kluber type player or a Clayton Kershaw, who do you counter with? And I get that they've got guys that are putting up good numbers, but you need top line pitchers. You need like guys that have done it and will continue to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the one also thing I will note is that Jimmy Nelson, who is proven to be really good, will be coming back, but we'll see how well he does after his injury. I think he'll do well, but we'll see. I don't really know for sure. But that's all I had to say about them. Quickly, before we moved on, I also wanted to touch on the Cardinals because they're a tough team to nail down because there are weeks where they look like contenders and there are weeks where they look just like the same mediocre team of 16 and 17. I didn't really know what your opinion was on them, but I guess while asking this, who would you say is a bigger threat to the Cubs, and who do you think is going to be closer in the end to the top of the NL Central, the Cardinals or the Brewers?
For this year?
Yes.
I think the Brewers are the tougher team because I think they're a better team, a more consistent team, and a better managed team, and a better bullpen.
I'll agree with better managed for sure. Craig Counsell, you got to give him credit. He's done a hell of a job.
And they've got a better bullpen. So I think they're the much tougher division opponent to beat, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have the better record because the Cardinals have this mystique and they always hang around and they always will go on a streak to close gaps. So they may end up having a better record than the Brewers, but it does not mean that the Brewers are definitely a better team.
I think also a really big thing for the Cardinals is right now they are very banged up.
Cardinals. Ugh.
One last question about the Cardinals. Out of curiosity, I'm really starting to think that Dexter Fowler is going to last another year there. And I'm starting to think that it's best for both Fowler and the Cardinals for them to trade him. I want to know what your opinion was.
That was not a good fit, him going there, and he has not flourished there. I just don't know. I don't know what the trade value is for him and who makes that move.
Yeah, it would probably be someone who needs to have a need for a leadoff man or an outfielder Obviously, someone contending, or maybe not necessarily just contending, but maybe a team looking to solidify a leadoff position for the future, because his stats right now, I love you, Dex, but they're awful. He's batting 173 with a 279 on base percentage, way off what he normally puts up. I mean, last year his on base in his first year with the Cardinals was 363. I mean, that's pretty good after 393 with the Cubs. And I've said this once and I've said this again. 2016 was the peak year of Dexter Fowler, and I still think he's a good ball player. I think he needs to get out of St. Louis. He's not a right fit for the team. He just isn't. And the Brewers, I mean, not the Brewers, the Cardinals probably have a number of guys they could try to replace him with. I mean, they have some good outfielders. So I don't know. It's weird that a 32-year-old would have just such a dip like this. Even last year, he struggled for a while before he kind of found it again. The second half is what really... Dexter Fowler was great in the second half last year. He was the main reason the Cardinals were still somewhat alive in the playoff race. But right now, I just don't think he's... I just think he needs to move out from there. And he's on a long-term deal. So if you're a team that sees the value in Fowler, you look at his career numbers, and you think he could benefit you for a while, maybe someone goes after them. Maybe somebody goes after him.
The minute you start hearing trade rumors swirling around him, you're going to have a ton of Cubs fans going, get the band back together, man. Get the band back together.
Oh, of course. Now, I always love Dex, but right now, you would have to trade away someone in the outfield to have room for him.
Yeah, that does not make sense for the Cubs at all.
I know the leadoff man isn't as solid as it was with Dexter Fowler. If the Cubs did somehow get him back, I mean, I wouldn't complain, but I just don't think that they're going to do it.
Cubs. So we got, I don't know if it's good news or bad news. Darvish had a simulated game, and he's going to probably do 1 to 2 rehab starts. We might see him back before the All-Star break, possibly, but probably not. What do you think we're going to get when he comes back?
From you, Darvish?
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to say. Those kind of injuries are tricky. I'm going to be optimistic and say we're going to get the Yu Darvish we signed. Though it might take a few starts to kind of get him there. It's hard for me to say what I think just because I don't really know how he feels. It's always concerning when you have arm problems as a pitcher and somebody who's had arm problems in the past. But, I'm going to try to take the optimistic approach because, he's got a lot of talent.
We dodged a bullet with Baez. Baez got plunked pretty good on his elbow. And when I saw it, I screamed like a little girl because I don't know about you, but I just all that went in my head was worst case scenario.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I mean, most people were. You're not the only one.
But yeah, apparently he's okay and might even play tomorrow. So that's positive.
Yeah, hopefully. Because I was actually just leaving my internship and I turned on the radio as soon as it happened, so I didn't see it happen. But the way Pat Hughes was describing is he's in a lot of pain, Ronnie, and he's on the ground, and now he's standing up, and so I didn't see it happen, but it did not sound good.
Hendricks, Kyle Hendricks, another mediocre game, another given up home run. The hell's going on?
Yeah. I don't want to say I'm panicking about him, but I am a little concerned. The home runs are getting a little ridiculous. And I don't really have an answer for it. I mean, you know that the way he throws, if he makes a mistake, it's probably going to get crushed because he doesn't have a lot of velocity. But you're seeing the mistakes happen more and more. Now, to me, it seems like his biggest bugaboos are in the early innings. How many times has he given up an early home run and, it's an early deficit, but he rebounds and keeps you in the game? It's not like he's pitching terribly, but the home runs he's giving up, the numbers are, they're not what you want to be from Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah, it's really frustrating because you'll see quality, him pitch to quality for 85% of the game while he's in, but when he's not good, and he's giving up home runs, and and the Cubs offense typically is not giving him the support he needs because they're so streaky that it's been a tough road for him so far this season.
Yeah, and we're saying a tough road for a 3.55 ERA, though the FIP is 4.63. That's a little concerning. I hope he can rebound here, but yeah, there's definitely something up there.
I have two more topics. I don't know what else you have, but first one is I know the rumors about the Cubs in the offseason getting Bryce Harper. That's been the big rumor, has been rumored for ages now. Yeah, Bryce Harper to the Cubs, Bryce Harper to the Cubs. Doesn't it make way more sense for them to bring in Manny Machado?
I think it's starting to look that way. I really do. I think ever since the Manny Machado rumors have kind of revealed themselves to the public, that a lot of people are on the Manny Machado train right now. Because, like you said, we wind the clocks back even just a few months ago. It was all about Bryce Harper. Now it's a little different.
And this is nothing against Bryce Harper. I really like him, and I would love to see him on this team, but
it's all about the fit.
It's about the fit. Is you are starting to see a good play from Kyle Schwarber and better play in the outfield. You like what you're getting from Albert Almora. And finally, we are seeing Jason Hayward at the plate do something.
How fun has he been to watch? Ever since we talked about him on that one show, he's been on a tear. And you know what? It's awesome.
It's us. We did this.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Jed and Theo, we are available for hire. Just saying.
Now, go ahead.
So if you have Jason Hayward, who you're committed to for a lot of money, and he's starting to hit like the guy that you expected to see, and he's always been a great fielder, where does a Bryce Harper fit? You've got to move somebody.
Right. Exactly. I mean, the only way is that if Jason Hayward keeps tearing it up and he has trade value, and you trade his contract away, but even if he continues playing like this, I don't see the Cubs trading Jason Hayward. I really don't.
I think it's a hard trade to make. Be honest,
it's a very hard trade to make
because people are going to cite the previous seasons, and the amount of money that you still owe him. I just think that's a really hard trade to make, and without eating most of the contract anyway. So I just don't know how you bring in a Bryce Harper, but a Manny Machado he fields just as well as Addison Russell, and his bat is actually a good bat. And I, if you would ask me a month ago, do I think it's worth trading for Manny Machado? I would have said no. But at this point, with how inconsistent this offense is, I think you really have to realistically entertain trading for Manny Machado and then doing everything to sign him, because he is an absolute elite bat. And if you add him to this lineup, it adds consistency and another weapon that Addison Russell is not.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that a lot of people would actually agree with you because I've heard a lot of people saying, Manny Machado would be a great fit on this team and could also really help with some of the bugaboos of the inconsistency of this team. So, obviously he would be an upgrade. Do I think that he's the biggest need? No, but I would like him on the team. It depends on how much they'd have to give up. I want to know what his current value is, according to the Orioles. I want to know what they're asking. I've said this many times before. I want to know what they're asking.
What do you think is the biggest realistic upgrade the Cubs could make mid-season? Because my thinking is that every single year that you're in this position that you could win the World Series, you need to go for it because you never know what's going to happen in future seasons. And
that's true.
So what do you think is the biggest realistic option to upgrade at the trade deadline for this current Cubs team?
Well, right now it might be a bat. For me, the difficulty is, okay, when is Darvish coming back? Because we also want to talk about the rotation, even though the rotation has Mike Montgomery in it right now, who's been really good. But, if Darvish isn't healthy and, what if Montgomery starts struggling? Would it be another pitcher? But with the inconsistency of this team, you could argue a bat. Now, Manny Machado would give you both. Now, do I think that the Cubs are good enough to win right now with this team? Yeah, but we talked about the inconsistency, and maybe adding him would just let this team cruise away. I don't know. Also, I guess if you wanted to ask me about the bullpen, that would probably be on health because Carl Edwards Jr. isn't healthy right now. The bullpen is doing really well for the time being, but is it going to stay that way? I don't know. But your question was right now. Right now would probably be a bat. I guess it would be. Just thinking about it.
I look at it as realistic. Is if the Cubs are going to go after a pitcher, they're going to go after they would have to go after somebody like a frontline pitcher, and I don't think they have the weapons, the trade assets to make that deal.
Probably not at this point, no.
And a bat is going to be much more affordable in trade value than an arm. And you look at an outfielder, you've already got a plethora of outfielders. You like Happ, you like Schwarber, you like Almora, you like Hayward, and then you can throw Zobrist out there if you need to. Hell, you could throw Bryant out there, you have. Or if you're Joe Madden, you can just throw pitchers out there, whatever. So outfield, there's just not room there. First base, even though he's not hitting like you want him to hit, is you're not gonna replace Rizzo.
Right.
Baez, you're not gonna replace him at second. You're not gonna get anybody better at third than Bryant, even though we've talked about his struggles. And you like what Wilson Contreras brings you at the catcher spot, both at the with his arm and with his bat. It's the shortstop, and that's your clear upgrade right there. And I just don't know what a Manny Machado trade looks like. I think if you put an Addison Russell with the number of years you have under team control, that's a good start to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously you can assume that they're going to want young assets or controllable assets. They're not going to be trading for veterans. The Orioles, I should say. Obviously, you can't trade draft picks, so it's going to be young assets.
But I'm going to be curious, and I think the Cubs are stupid if they don't at least explore every avenue to try to bring him to this team.
Oh yeah, I definitely think that more and more they're tempted to really try to find something, or at least they're going to explore it, kick the tires.
And the last topic I have is with the poor performance of Tyler Chatwood and the absolutely great performances you've been getting from Mike Montgomery. When can we start talking about replacing Chatwood with Montgomery? And second part to this question, it is the way that Randy Rosario is pitching in the bullpen. Does this make that move possible? And if so, what do you do with Chatwood?
Well, you can't, demote him to the minors. And a lot of people want Chatwood in the bullpen, but I'm thinking, okay, do you really want the wildness of Chatwood in a bullpen late in a game? I don't. I mean, it would depend on how you use him. You'd probably use him as long relief, but still, if you needed someone to come out of the bullpen, would you really want the prospect of like, okay, he's coming in, is he going to walk 10 billion guys or what? I don't know. Right now, you have to stick with him because Darvish is on the DL. The answers are going to come when Darvish is healthy again. Because right now you have 5 guys. That does include Chatwood, and that does include Montgomery, on top of Lester, Quintana, and Hendricks. But once Darvish comes back, you're going to ask yourself, okay, do we keep Mike Montgomery in, put Chatwood out, or what I think they're going to do is they're going to go with the old 6-man rotation. I really think that's what's going to happen.
I don't think that's a bad option.
I don't think it is either. And it's not like you're going to try to fit Chatwood into a playoff roster in the rotation. You know that's not going to happen. You know that if this team is healthy, you know who your starters are going to be.
Well, the playoffs, you know who the starters are.
In the playoffs, yes. You know the top 4.
Yeah, so this works itself out in the playoffs. But the amazing thing is Randy Rosario has made all of this a realistic possibility with the way he's pitched.
What a find.
I mean, he's putting up great numbers, and sometimes a bullpen guy will put up great numbers, but it doesn't look good doing it. It's just like such a small sample size that he's getting results without looking good. He looks good. He looks good out there.
He's been very effective. I mean, you look at his numbers this year so far. 13.2 innings, 0.66 CRA, a whip of under 1. He's given up 1 earned run in the innings he's pitched. And last year, he pitched 2.1 innings in the majors, had a 30.86 ERA, gave up 8 earned runs with Minnesota. That's all his big league experience. And he's only 24, so it's not like he's some random journeyman who's like 30. He's still a young guy.
Yeah,
he's just a few days younger than I am, actually.
He looks fantastic. And every time he pitches, it's like, and I'm not going to lie, is when Carl Edwards pitches, when there's several guys in the Cubs bullpen that when they pitch, I hold my breath. But Randy Rosario, when he goes out there, I feel confident and comfortable. Like he's going to go out there and get that job done. It gives me that same feeling that I had when Wade Davis would go out there. Maybe not to the same extent, but that same level of comfort where I'm like, all right, I know that we're okay this inning.
Yeah, I know. He's been incredibly reliable. And this was just a waiver selection. That's all it was. They just got him off waivers. And sometimes that's where you find your successful bullpen guys. So far, this has been a really good find.
So 7 of our next 11 games are against the Dodgers, who are starting to find their rhythm. We get Rich Hill back after his DL stint. What is these 2 series going to tell us about the Cubs and the Dodgers?
Well, I think that both are going to be near the top no matter what at the end of the year, but we're running into the Dodgers at a time they're playing their best ball. So the Cubs have to show they could stick up to the task here. I'm not saying that they have to sweep both series, But I'm saying they better at least like pretty much split the difference here. At least. You'd like to see them win more than they lose, but you don't want to only win like 2 games in this stretch against the Dodgers. That would not be good.
No, not at all. You need to win these games. And this a couple weeks ago was looking like, gimme games, but the Dodgers are roaring back, and they're knocking on the Diamondbacks' door to take the division lead.
Oh, when it's all said and done, I think the Dodgers still finish way ahead of everybody.
Oh, I totally. I mean, the Giants were hanging there for a minute, and I think the Dodgers are 3 games ahead of the Giants, and I think that's as close as it's going to be for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the Rockies done, Padres done before.
They were never in it.
They were done in spring training.
Yeah,
but the Diamondbacks, I mean, not knocking them at all. I don't think they're a pushover team, but the Dodgers are just going to come roaring back and just trample them. I think the Cubs got to strike in these 2 series and take some decisive games, because it's not like the Dodgers are going to get any worse. They're going to just get better, and you want to take advantage there, and for your psyche come the playoffs, and for your division or your standings in the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even though these aren't division teams, you really want to beat these guys. You got to keep winning here. I mean, this is going to be a tough race. And again, I'm not asking for perfection, but you don't want to lose both these series.
I mean, the nice thing is you get a palate cleanser in between.
Who are they playing in between?
The Reds in Cincinnati.
Oh, well. Again, they haven't played them at Wrigley Field yet.
So they get the Reds. So hopefully, I honestly, I'd rather see them play the Reds in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's true. They do mash in that ballpark. It's just
get Chris
surprising.
Bryant out of his streak and doing some batting practice there.
Yeah.
But that's all I had. I don't know if you had any more topics.
Yeah, there was like a few quick ones. First of all, we're going to go back to the bullpen with this topic. How are you feeling right now about Brandon Morrow? Because right now, overall, I'm feeling pretty good with him. And he's struggled a little bit lately, but he's still getting the job done and the velocity is still there. Right now, I'm just thinking he's in a little bit of a rut, but he's still, able to overcome all that. I don't know what your thoughts were.
My only thing about the bullpen is I wish Joe would stop leaning on him so hard.
Yeah, well, doesn't look like that's going to change.
That's my frustration, is Joe's always the smartest guy in the room, but you can't argue with Joe.
Yeah.
That was sarcasm, but
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still confident in this bullpen. I just don't want them to get worn out, because we're going to need them.
We saw it last year. We saw what happened when they get worn out last year.
Yep, absolutely.
Here's the last thing I wanted to bring up really quick. And this is a good thing. You got to love the way John Lester is just grinding away here. I think that's one of the biggest, if not the brightest spot on this team, is John Lester just getting it done.
I think we both owe him an apology, because we had a lot of question marks about John Lester before the season started.
Well, I always said that he was going to rebound, but, we still had our share of concerns. But, I mean, if we said anything to John Lester to his face, he'd probably hog tie us and feed us to John Lackey. So
and Buttercup.
And Buttercup.
It's not even a real horse. It's John Lackey with 2 coconuts halves.
It's 2 coconut halves, and it's just like a broom with like a horse's head on it.
This Buttercup. It's not a real horse. Shut your mouth.
And then he walks over you as his spurs go clank, clank. But yeah, I mean, like I was saying, hell lot of credit to John Lester. You got to really like what he's doing. And, one of the biggest concerns you and I were talking about when we had some doubts was the velocity. But in the last start against the Cardinals, he was throwing 93.
I mean, honestly, I want everybody that talked awful about the Cubs' decision to sign him, and especially during that first half of that first year he was with the Cubs, that just was saying how awful it was. I would love for any of those guys to come on the show and try to defend that position now that we have a World Series and the way he's pitched. If you just take that first half of that first year out of it, how great he's been.
Oh, I mean, I think he's been worth every single penny, especially when you look at what he's done in the postseason. Because last year and 2016, he was pitching like John Lester. In 2015, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great. But then again, in both games he pitched, he didn't get really any run support, so that didn't help. But, I mean, the 2016 postseason, he was incredible.
So, I mean, that was no John Lester, no World Series.
No, of course not. That's why this signing was 100% worth it. And the way he's going, he can make a second All-Star team as a Cub. I mean, think about it. A guy who was a postseason master for you, got you a World Series, and is potentially a multi-time All-Star. I'd say that's money well spent.
Yeah, I mean, this is year, is it 4 of 6? Is it a 6-year deal? This is year 4.
6-year deal.
And you have not regretted any bit of it. So even if he takes a dip next year, you're like, okay, well, he's still probably pretty good. Even if that last year is a bust, it's the last year of a deal. And you got a World Series and bare minimum 3 consecutive NLCS appearances.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think I've pretty much said my piece. Though I'm a little worried because I think I hear Buttercup coming. Whoa, girl! Whoa! He lifts the broom up, like, whoa there, whoa.
He says though with a big wad of chaw on his cheek. Buttercup has got a spittoon tied to her with duct tape. Buttercup is got a built-in dispenser in her head. You pull on one ear, pull on her mane, and some chaw comes out of her mouth that he can put in his mouth.
It's Buttercup chaw.
She's like a Piz dispenser for chaw.
Nobody touch my chaw.
I got a chaw dispenser, and I got a backup chaw dispenser in case that chaw dispenser runs out of chaw.
just you're not looking, and all of a sudden you hear the clank of the 2 coconuts along with the clanks of the spurs. Just
and then after they stop, there's like a 1 second pause, and then you hear like a ding, and it's him spitting in the spittoon. Like the bad Foley sound of him spitting in a spittoon.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's wonderful.
But I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody for listening. Please check us out on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether that's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or the TuneIn app. Please make sure you share with your friends. Thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her.
her, you can have her, she's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van, and she looks like
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on the plains.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the bears go bearing down.